Hello and welcome to Business Sense. I'm Ralph Rivas. For today's episode, we have Yang Yang Zhang, Managing Director of Xendit Philippines. Xendit is a Southeast Asian fintech company that provides payment infrastructure across Indonesia and here in the Philippines. Hi, Yang Yang.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So tell us a little more about Xendit, what it is about, because I'm pretty sure most Filipinos are not really familiar with Xendit.
I do think that digital payments is definitely new to the Philippines still, although it's definitely getting more and more press and more interest from MSMEs everywhere. So I think Xendit in general focuses on building payments infrastructure. And I think that's a very fancy way of saying that we want to be the roads that connect all of these massive financial institutions that are cropping up all across the Philippines. So essentially, Xendit focuses on building payment solutions, being that simple one-stop shop for merchants to be able to accept payments and send out disbursements. And I think that, as we have an eye on, deepening our relationship with Filipino merchants and, enhancing our services for the Filipino market, we're now looking at a wide variety of value-added services as well. So essentially in time, right now, we are sort of this one-stop shop for payments and disbursements. In a couple of years, we want to be the one-stop shop for merchant services for, any Filipino merchant, whether it's an MSME, an SME, a growth stage startup, or an enterprise.
Hmm. Um, Fintech is really, reaping the benefits of, people embracing digital. Now, tell us about milestones. What are your achievements in the past year amid the pandemic? And what are your targets and expectations for the Philippine market this year and maybe in the medium term?
I think when the pandemic first started, of course, all of us panicked, right? I think that as a tech company, to all of a sudden be faced with the potential shutdown of businesses across the nation, we definitely didn't know what the outlook would be. But luckily, in the last year, we were able to achieve 25% on average month-on-month growth, kind of maintain that even through our first kind of full year of operations. We've also grown our team on the ground tenfold. So I think something that was really important to us was to be able to build a team on the ground. So everyone from product folks to developers to business folks and operations, we now have this sort of full team here in the Philippines. I think that in terms of milestones that we were able to achieve last year, we were the first Philippines payment gateway to offer all three of the largest e-wallets. So GCash, GrabPay, and PayMaya. We're now pushing out into, of course, other e-wallets that are available in the market as well. And of course, hoping to continue to be that most comprehensive solution across all these different channels. We were also the first to introduce the direct debit solution to the Philippines. So I think this is something that really did not exist in the market prior to our entry. It's something that we saw, in a lot of developed markets, the ability to pull funds directly from a bank account. So for any of you who, let's say, for example, order Grab Food, that's Xendit powering your ability to pay for your Grab Food purchase with a BPI account. It's also, Xendit that powers the ability to then link your bank account so that you can easily check out, seamlessly for all future transactions. In terms of other sort of, products that we're really proud of, we were first to market with a buy now, pay later aggregator. So the first partner on that platform is BillEase. By building this sort of aggregator, we make it possible for merchants, even tiny individual merchants, to be able to offer an installment style solution for their customers to pay. So essentially, we ourselves are not the underwriter of these loans. It's BillEase and our other partners that are the ones actually offering the loans themselves. But we are the ones who facilitate settlement with the merchants, and have then, of course, help merchants have acceptance across a wide variety of channels. Furthermore, we were able to expand our own kind of OTC network, so our over-the-counter retail outlets. In this market, cash is still often king. We were able to expand to ECPay through our partnership with them, and they have been in the market for such a long time, really helped us expand very quickly to a large number of retail outlets, as well as directly with 7-Eleven and Cebuana Lhuillier. Something that we saw was that on the back of this massive uptake for the retail outlet experience that we were building, we wanted to build kind of a cleaner user interface for this cash-based transaction flow that had existed in the Philippines for so long. We actually decided that we were going to put a strategic investment into DragonPay. It's one of the most respected kind of legacy players in this market. And for us, we thought that by investing into DragonPay, we'd be able to contribute what we're very good at, which is sort of technology, user experience, and in return help them expand what they're very good at, which is building partnerships and making sure that they are the ones with the most expansive network of retail outlet and cash partners in the Philippines. And so kind of to tie that all together, on the back of all these sort of product achievements, we were very excited to become a unicorn. So we announced a $150 million Series C round in late 2021. This put our valuation above $1 billion for the first time. And we were very, very excited because one, I think that a lot of times the Philippines is seen as just an expansion market. Xendit, however, considers the Philippines a core market today. So while Xendit kind of began in Indonesia, we see Indonesia and Philippines as our two core markets. We're very excited to double down the Philippines as part of the Series C investment to put even more funds towards these strategic partnerships like we did with DragonPay, into these co-builds that we have with all of our partners in terms of providing the best possible first-to-market products for our merchants.
Now, you mentioned lots of details there, being a unicorn and your growth targets, and that's quite a lot. But I want to focus. Let me just go back first to the issue on, people embracing digital. Do you think that Filipinos have embraced it enough, or are they still reluctant to embrace digital? And is cash still king?
I think that cash has been king for so long. It's still its kingdom, right? I think that in some senses, Filipinos will always look to the convenience and the security of actually holding cash in their hands. So what we can do as digital players is to bring both of those features to the digital side as well. And that's kind of what Xendit's thesis is on building our products. The Philippines has always been a nation of first adopters, of people who are very tech forward on this young kind of mobile first market. And I think that, the pandemic just kind of brought to the forefront the necessity of, digital convenience. And so I think right now, what we try to focus on is one, ensuring that our channels, even our digital channels, are just as secure as handing over cold hard cash. I think the more bells and whistles we build in on the security side, the more eager Filipinos will be to adopt those digital payment channels. And then, of course, we also want to make sure that the more merchants that we empower to accept digital channels, the easier it is for someone to use the e-wallets that they put funds into, the bank accounts that they already put their savings into, the better it's going to be to facilitate acceptance across the board. So very excited for that. I think that the Filipino nation has come very, very far in the last just year and a half in terms of digital payment acceptance. I think that cash, especially in the far-flung areas, will continue to dominate for the next couple of years. But if more players like Xendit enter, if we're successful in our mission of being able to create these beautiful user experiences, even for over-the-counter outlets, I think that the dominance of cash is coming to an end very quickly.
Now, I want to ask about Xendit's experience in the Philippines. It's a relatively new to the Philippine market, right? So with the pandemic happening, and we have the elections coming up, lots of variables in play. How would you describe doing business here in the Philippines, and how would you describe the fintech landscape here?
People ask us all the time, why did you enter the Philippines? You were Indonesia first. What made you pick the Philippines as that second market? And I think it always boils down to three key things. It's how we see the fintech scene out here as well. The first is that the BSP, the SEC, the DTI, they are amongst the most supportive and open-minded regulators really across all of Southeast Asia. I think that for us, what we saw is that, all of these regulators are very open to innovation, very open to having conversations with these disruptors like Xendit in order to understand new use cases, in order to understand the new technology you're trying to bring into the market, and also not over-regulate, right? So I think that in terms of what I see in the fintech scene today, it is a collection of different players that are really trying to work with regulators in order to push that envelope of innovation forward. The second is that, we saw that the Philippines was really on the verge of hypergrowth. Like it had been sort of um, building that sort of momentum underneath the surface, building the potential to grow as quickly as we knew it could over, the last, I would say, 10, 20 years. And just as we saw in Indonesia, that hyper growth kind of comes and, hits with a bang and just keeps going. We were very, very sure when we entered in 2019 that the Philippines was about to hit that hyper growth. I think we're starting to see that, with more and more funds being raised by local startups, with more and more interest in kind of that digital space. We really see that kind of explosion of growth. And then finally, I think that for us, we saw that, we had a very large Rolodex of regional customers, all of whom were also interested in expanding to the Philippines. And so something that we've been very proud of and very excited for is the ability to help our existing customers who were already live with us in Indonesia also grow their operations in the Philippines. And so I think that for us, that's really also how we see the fintech scene. Not only is there a strong homegrown scene, but also the Philippines is becoming a more and more prominent part of the regional marketplace as well.
Mhm. Now, you were able to become the Southeast Asian unicorn, and 2021 was definitely a big year for Xendit. Now, what about 2022? Any new products, services that you're launching this year?
Yeah, I think a big focus for 2022 is really to maintain that kind of momentum that we've built, right? I think that, of course, I said earlier, when the pandemic first happened, we were really worried that we weren't going to be able to grow at all. And then we ended up being able to grow kind of 25% month over month. We want to make sure that we're able to kind of maintain that rate of growth as much as we can, even as we become bigger in the market. And so I think that, a big part of that is being able to continue to innovate. What we don't want to do is rest on our laurels, let our product portfolio remain the same year after year. We continuously want to continue to talk to our customers, talk to our partners, our partner channels, and figure out what new builds we can create together to make sure that we can deepen our ties and really become that desirable partner on both sides. So I think that in terms of, how we see that happening, the bigger our Filipino team grows, the more tapped in we feel like we are to the needs of the Filipino market specifically. So I think that our thesis on expansion has always been hyper-localization. And a big part of that is that we really want to hyper-localize our solutions, from our regional product base, even more for the Philippines market in this year. And so right now we have kind of one overarching initiative for the year, and then 3 products that we already have in the pipeline. It's just February. I think that in terms of that overarching goal, we definitely want to really, really focus on SMEs. So I think, we have had a lot of success with enterprise customers. We've had, of course, also a lot of SMEs that have started to use our services. But I think that this year, we really want to make sure that we can scale for SMEs much more quickly. We want to prove to SMEs that we can be their commercialization partner, that we can help them when they are, seed stage. We can help them when they are an individual seller, and we continue to help them grow and scale as their volumes and their business grow. And so I think as part of that, 3 new products that we're rolling out are first, Zen Capital. So Zen Capital is a lending solution with very flexible lending terms. We basically lend to our own merchants, a percentage of their accounts receivable with us. We want to give them kind of working capital in order to grow their business. And so I think for us, we see this as an alternative to traditional financial institutions. We want to make sure that these loans are dispersed with simplicity, with speed, and with a lot of full service features in terms of helping the merchants understand how to best deploy that capital. And then of course, on our side, because we've already KYC these businesses as our customers, we also want to make sure that we can work through that onboarding process very quickly to get them the cash they need to grow. The second is Illuma. Illuma is our value-added service that focuses on data services. So we want to help businesses leverage their own data. We want to help them strengthen their business processes by utilizing this data. And so essentially, for SMEs that often haven't had the luxury of time or the resources to really think about the data aspect of their business or the KYC aspect of their business, we want to help them have the ability to validate contracts, accounts, identity documents, screen for fraud, right off the bat, so that they don't have to wait until they are a much bigger business to be able to afford these services. So I think for us, that's really a huge focus. And I think earlier I mentioned that if we're going to expect higher digital adoption, we have to be the ones to promote that, secure transactions. This is our step towards that by really promoting the Illuma product locally as well. And then finally, Xendit is not just a payment gateway. We also have our remittance license in market. This year, there's a big focus for us on being able to also facilitate cross-border transactions and foreign exchange. So as part of our new products, we have Zen Remit, which is our cross-border remittance solution. We want to make sure that we can provide that same sort of beautiful customer experience as the last mile and first mile solution for cross-border payments and remittances.
Now, I noticed this with fintech companies. You guys are more trusting to SMEs as opposed to traditional banks. Where is that coming from? Because banks really have a long list of yes and no's and giving out loans and various services to SMEs. So why do you think that is? And why aren't you iffy that small businesses will not be able to pay up?
Honestly, I think our willingness to be flexible is rooted in empathy. We were an SME once. I think Xendit started with a tiny core team. I've been a startup founder in the Philippines before. I was once that SME. Facing these difficulties, facing all of these challenges in terms of having access to, let's say, working capital loans or financial services. And so I think what we see is that in order for innovation to happen more and more quickly, we have to drop the barriers for entry for everybody. And so I think in terms of wanting to be flexible on that regard, it's kind of a dual-edged situation. We know that we have the technology to eliminate fraud as much as possible. We know that we've built very secure services overall. And so therefore, we think that we have a little bit more liberty to really help open up these services to SMEs who are desperately searching for ways to grow their businesses faster.
Now, well, it's Women's Month, and tell us about your experience as a woman leader. Being having been in various positions. Tell us about your experience, and do you think that the fintech industry has a level playing field?
Something I've always known. So I've worked in a lot of markets. I've worked in the US, I've worked in Korea, I've worked in Europe, I've worked now in the Philippines. And I have to say, the Philippines actually has one of the most, I'd say, gender equitable leadership cultures. I think that you see a lot of women in positions of leadership. You see a lot of women empowered to grow in very senior positions. I think that said, of course, there is a level of intimidation for most women wanting to enter the tech field simply because there is a gender imbalance that has been there for decades beforehand. I think from my own personal experience, something that has always really helped me is that I try very hard not to think of myself as a woman in tech, or specifically just, a woman trying to break into tech, but really just a person operating in tech who happens to be a woman at the same time. I think that, I started coding when I was really young, and my parents never really told me, hey, you're a girl who codes. Most of the other kids who are coding at your age or even a little bit older are always boys. I think that I always just thought tech is something I'm really interested in, I'm really passionate about. And, I will chase this passion the way I would chase a passion in cooking or a passion in athletics. And so I think that in large part, what I hope that we can kind of move to is this culture of not differentiating tech as something that's just male dominated, but empowering women to chase their passions no matter where they lie. So I think in terms of, Women's Month, I am really hoping that what defines it now and in the future It's just encouraging women to find whatever drives them and to give them the tools it takes to kind of step up to the plate and ask for those challenges, to take on new roles, new responsibilities, and to kind of explore new fields if they're interested, whether they're male dominated or not.
Mm. Now, what about for Xendit? What's the experience there, and what are you guys doing to make it more equitable and make it less intimidating for women to enter into fintech?
Yeah, I think that interesting stats about Xendit. Xendit actually currently has over 40% female managers. So I think that in terms of promoting that even playing field, Xendit does our best. In terms of engineers, a little bit more imbalanced. I think 14% of our engineering forces are women, but a lot of our teams actually have initiatives that specifically focus on recruiting women, whether into junior or senior roles, making sure that they have access to as many opportunities as their male counterparts. I think that in terms of leveling the playing field, I think at Xendit we have a very keen awareness that the problem exists. I think that it's not fair to say if we turn a blind eye and just kind of give equal opportunities, we will eventually even out. I think there has to be recognition of the fact that historically there has been an imbalance. We want to seek to address that imbalance, but then as soon as they enter and become part of the team, they're treated the same as anybody else. And so I think in general, we want to make sure that it's not just an organizational advocacy for us. I think that it's really driven by leadership commitments, by the mentorship that exists internally. I think that's something that has always stood out to me at Xendit, is that of this very large core of female managers, all of us really try to take on younger women as mentees. We really want to make sure that we set aside our own time to help these women figure out, these younger women, really figure out what their path will be. And I think for me, especially for anyone kind of entering my team, men or women, the question has always been, how do you want to grow? I think the thesis for me, at least as a manager, is no one is no one is entitled to claim someone else's time as an employee. No employee is ever obligated to work for a particular employer. It's a two-way relationship. Just as we expect that employees will, step up to the plate and give up their hard work and the hours that they could otherwise spend with their families, we also have an obligation to then give back, to give our time in terms of creating these growth opportunities. And I think that's much more important sometimes for women than it is for men, that there's someone out there kind of looking out for the fact that there is a growth path carved out for them internally as well.
Mm. Now, thanks so much for your time, Yang Yang. I learned a lot, and really looking forward to what's next for Xendit this year in the coming years. Lots of exciting opportunities in the fintech space. So yeah, hope to hear from you again. That was Yang Yang Zhang, Managing Director of Xendit Philippines, and I'm Ralph Rivas. This has been another episode of Business Sense. Thanks for watching.